Yo, what is up guys and gals? Welcome back to another chess video. This is me, JK Jax, back at it again. Today, I'm going to be showing you how to play the Vienna Part 5. Now, for the first 4 parts of the Vienna, I've been covering through all the main lines. For the next few parts of the Vienna, I'm going to be covering the side lines that you'll see. And one of the most common moves you'll see is Bishop to c5, which is known as the Anderssen's defense. Now, a lot of lower rated players like to play this move to try and take white out of prep, out of theory. However, this move is inferior to the max lunge defense or the main line of the Vienna, which is f6. Why? The Vienna opening is catered towards central play, where white controls the center and gains space against black. Bishop c5 does not really fight for the center as effectively as knight c6 or knight f6. White wants the central control and black needs to try and fight for that center as well. With bishop c5, you are telling your opponent that you're giving the center to, with the move bishop to c5, you're essentially giving the center to white, allowing white to do whatever he wants. So black is already like slightly worse here. Now, here you can play knight f3 and go into the 4 knights Italian. However, since this is a Vienna video, it is not a Vienna video. Actually, it is not a Vienna opening without f4. Alright, f4 is the breath of the Vienna. It is the life of Vienna. Okay, f4 and the Vienna are married. Okay, without f4, there is no Vienna. Without Vienna, there is still f4. It is known as the bird's opening. But should you play it? I don't know, up to personal preference. Okay, f4 is the thematic key pawn break in the Vienna. So here black is forced to respond. There is an f pawn attacking his pawn on e5. Is he going to release the tension by taking this pawn? Is he going to maintain the tension and defend this pawn with d6? Or is he going to develop the knight and defend the pawn on e5? Let's start with the most common move. E takes f4. Now this is actually a mistake because now this pawn doesn't really fight for the center control anymore, and white wins the center with the move pawn to d4, attacking the bishop and maintaining a very nice grip in the center. His pieces can come out super freely, while black's pieces are still all stuck in the 8th rank. Here black can try queen h4, giving a check to the king, and notice that you can't play the move pawn to g3 because otherwise black will take the pawn. This pawn can't recapture because this queen is actually pinning the pawn down to the rook, so you can't take it. And if you try to be smart and play knight f3, black actually has this move, pawn to g2 check, a discovered check by this queen, sacrificing a full queen, but in the process black will take your rook and make a new queen. And that's why after queen h4 check, you have to play the move king to e2. For the first time, the bomb cloud move is actually the best move. Alright, now you don't have any other better options. g3 is a losing mistake, but this move is surprisingly great. The reason is because in the future you can hide your king on f2, which is surprisingly safe, and you can bring out your other pieces into the game. Notice that black can't really hurt you along this diagonal, for example queen h5 delivering this check, because you always have this move knight to f3 to cover you from this check, and you are safe. The more common move you'll see is straight away bishop b6, retreating the bishop. Now you play knight f3, black goes queen e7, and now you play this move, bishop takes f4. So now what do you get out of this opening? You have a more superior position, you have nice center control, and at some point in time you're going to move away your king and get your other pieces out. Now here, there's a very nice thing to note. If black goes knight to f6 or d6, you play queen d3 to reinforce the pawn on e4, and in the future you're going to play the move king b2 as well as rook e1. For example, if the king decides to castle, then you can play king d2 as well as rook e1, and you have a very nice active position. You're at some point gonna play e5, and after you win the control of the center, you can start attacking along the king side with moves like h3, g4, h4, g5. Go crazy with the moves, alright? And if they play something like d5, then e5, and once again, they're just helping your development. It's not really helping black's case here. And against d6, same case. Against d6 is actually just the same case. Just go queen d3, and the same idea follows. Okay, rook e1, king d2. You get the drill. But what happens if they play d5? Attacking the pinned pawn on e4. Note that you cannot take this pawn on d5 because black has queen takes e4 check, which is a fork on your knight and your bishop and your king, and you're gonna have to give up one of these two pieces. So of course you can't take this free pawn. Instead, the best move by white here is king to f2. Just go along with your plan, opening up your bishop and giving up the pawn on e4. What happens if black were to be greedy and take the pawn on e4? Well, white can play knight takes e4, sacrificing the knight on e4. What? Isn't the knight just free? Bishop b5 check. And now the main point is revealed. You're opening up the rook to pin the queen to the king. And if, for example, black tries to step away from the pin, rook e1 anyway. Now, even though the queen is no longer pinned to the king, the queen is being pinned down to the e8 square, where it's checkmate. For example, if black takes this free bishop, this is actually just checkmate and the game is already over. So this is a very nice variation to keep in mind. And yeah, that will be it against e takes f4. Let's move on to the next variation. What happens if black plays d6? You can play knight f3, knight f6, bishop c4, knight c6, and d3. Wait a second. I've seen this position somewhere before. Could it be from part 3 of the Vienna video series? Maybe. Maybe not. Go check that video to find out. And last variation is knight c6. What happens if they defend the pawn this way with the knight? Well, you play knight f3. Well, in this position, you play knight to f3. Black plays d6. And of course, yeah, we play bishop c4 once again. And everything is good. Knight f6, and you've transposed back to part 3 of the Vienna. You've transposed back to part 3 of the Vienna video series. But what happens if black tries bishop g4? Here you can play h3, attacking this bishop. Bishop takes f3, queen takes f3, and of course, there is a very nice trap here. If black tries to be smart, attacking your queen and your pawn, in this position you can actually sacrifice the rook, queen to g4, allowing this check to happen. You're down a full rook, but what do you get in the process? Well, you have a knight that's completely out of this game, and after takes, and you might think, Jack, the rook is not trapped. I can just go queen f6 and defend my rook. But that's not the point. You play queen to g4 to attack black's king. Black is cooked now, chat. Look at this. Absolute pressure against black here. And there is not a good way for black to even defend this pawn. If black tries to save the pawn with moves like f6, queen takes g7, and now the rook is actually trapped. I mean, insane. Alright, there's a mate on f7. It's a rook that's prone to being trapped. Damn. Worse yet, knight f6, once again, same idea. queen takes g7, and I mean, yeah, this is just sad for black here. White is about to add like another attacker into the position, maybe like this, maybe like this. Yeah, black is just gonna add white is just gonna add a fourth defender against black here, and black can't do anything about it. That's the sad part. Alright, you feel helpless, but no choice. That's just how life is. It's helpless. Okay, this is coming as well. So that'll be it against this very nice knight to d4 trap. Of course, if they play something like g6 to defend themselves, sack the rook again, because again, if they take, same variation occurs. So here, of course, black will take, and now your attack is no more. You don't really have that privilege of playing waiting moves. Now this time you defend the pawn, but overall your position is still good. At some point you're gonna play bishop to d3. You can play pawn to d3 followed by bishop to g5 and rook f1, and try to go for the same idea. Alright, that'll be it against pretty much everything in the Anderssen's defense. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I know it's a little bit boring and dry, but stay tuned for the next one because it's more interesting than this one. Peace.